Jake for the State podcast, and this is the call for every red-blooded, God-fearing, liberty-loving patriot to prepare yourself, take your position, stand your ground, and advance the cause of freedom. Let's go.
With Representative Tom Gann. It's going to be a great interview. You'll find that most usually on the Jake for the State podcast, that's who I like to interview. Like-minded people talking about the good fight for freedom. And it just so happens that conservative legislators are interested in that conservative approach that doesn't seek to grow government, but keep government in its lane and maximize freedom. I'm here with a guy that's been doing that for a while, and he's coming to you right now, Mr. Tom Gann, representative in the Oklahoma House. Representative Gann, welcome.
Thank you for having me this morning, Jake.
Well, absolutely. I appreciate your time today, and of course, all you've been doing for freedom here in Oklahoma. So remind me, this session starts which year for you in the Oklahoma House? I'm
going into my 10th year. And
wow.
I have, according to term limits, if I'm successful in the April filing and in the next election cycle, I have 2 more sessions, and then I wrap it up.
All right. Well, we are rooting for you to win that election. I see no reason why you would not, because the people in your district, I think you represent them well. Every time, I've been all over the state, of course, with this campaign, and up there at your district, it's always a packed house. I mean, people are so active and engaged and interested in what's happening politically in the state of Oklahoma. Why do you think that is up in your area?
Well, I think that the grassroots are tired of the same old, where you have legislators that would, campaign on all their promises and things, and then early on in their career, they betray their constituency because they attached to the special interests that are dominating down at the state capitol. And of course, that gets back to the original campaign promise and pledge that we took, was to not take lobbyist money or PAC money during our tenure as a state representative. And we have held to that. We've held true to that. And I think that brings a tremendous amount of credibility with the grassroots, with people who are tired of secret government, tired of the betrayal, and want somebody who's real and will see a bigger picture here than just the money involved, and concentrate on our freedoms that are being eroded on a daily basis, our government that seems to operate more and more under secrecy. And those that take that pledge, those that stand for a resistance of and abstinence of that moneyed influence ought to be supported in this next election cycle wholeheartedly.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more. I personally have taken that pledge. I'm so glad you brought it up, because that was one of the leading questions I wanted to start with, because I recently interviewed former Representative Jason Murphy, who's doing just great things covering issues in the state, providing that conservative perspective. And of course, recently he released his conservative rating of the Oklahoma House. And you, of course, were at the very top, rated as the most conservative in the Oklahoma House, according to Jason Murphy's rating and ranking. So that was one of the primary things he pointed out in his study, is how those who did not take lobbyist or special interest money proved to be more conservative in the way they legislated, in the bills they voted on, and the bills they voted against. Why is that so? How much does the money truly impact a legislator when they're actually in office?
Well, I think the People's Audit, as you're referring to, of course.
The People's Audit, right.
Yes. Well, there were 5 of us that were above a certain score. I believe it was, I can't remember the bottom score, but that's indicative. Most of those people do not take lobbyist money or PAC money, and it just shows you that we're serious about our freedom. We're serious about good government. We're serious about representing people in their interest, and not being swayed by somebody who might promise us a large contribution or be beholden to those that promise those large contributions. And at the end of the day, not taking lobbyist money, not taking PAC money, having that freedom to stand for your district and represent them, it gives you just the ability to say no when you have to. When you say, this is not good for my district, it's not good overall, it's not foundational, and it doesn't follow the Constitution, or it's not free market. It just gives you the ability to say no. One of the interesting things last session that Rick West out of Hebener, he also is an abstinence and doesn't take lobbyist money or PAC money, and a local TV news reporter came in and just asked him, hey, why do you vote no all the time? And he just flipped it over and said, well, you need to go ask these people why they vote green all the time.
That's right.
And so that was kind of pivotal here in our tenure at the state capitol, and being one of the few that do that. And although our scores, excuse me, our scores aren't perfect. I mean, we don't have, we're not perfect individuals, but it's reliable. You can rely on person to know that, hey, if you make a mistake, or if you make a vote that a lot of your constituents disagree with, well, it may be just an honest difference of viewpoint here. And the default, if you do take lobbyist money, PAC money, the default is, well, you're just bought out by some special interest group. It's just cynical, and which is the case most of the time. So we can lay it all out there. It's all on my ethics report. You might see an occasional meal charge that might show up on my ethics report, but that's from before the check clears. When it's kind of an administrative function. If you do go to a group or listen to a group that charges you for a meal and you pay it back, and it takes a while for the check to clear and have them update their ethics report.
Yeah. Usually when you have a legislator that's bringing attention to a particular transaction on the ethics report, most usually that is an indicator that they're ethical. When you're telling people, hey, go to the ethics report, and when you notice this transaction, well, this is why this happened. Because if you're not ethical, you're like, don't look behind the curtain. Let's look over here. But it's important for people to understand why, the why behind some of these transactions, and that there is a process to it. Like you said, there's maybe a delay in the check clearing and stuff like that. So it makes sense, but your willingness to explain that and be honest and transparent with the people, that's really what people want. They're just sick of the games.
Yes, and they deserve it, Jake. I mean, you deserve to have a government that's open, a government that lays it all out there and let people vote up or down and have the accountability. And it's just amazing how more secretive, how how government and those involved in government, especially elected officials, just despise their position that have put them in front of their constituents when they sign off on NDAs, or they don't support transparency and vote for the Open Meeting Act to be weakened. It's just amazing how that type of attitude is prevalent out here. Oh. And so we need open government. We need transparency. We need to just do everything on top of the table and not have anything go on behind the scene.
Here with Representative Tom Gann, Oklahoma State Representative. Remind me which district you're in and where that's at. Tell the people where you're located.
I'm in House District 8. House District 8 is the eastern part of Rogers County. Excuse me. Now, and then the western part of Mays County. And it has just pretty much evened up into a block right with the county line right there in the middle. And it's changed a little bit, but it's gotten more conservative over time. The Republican registration is well over 50% now, and it wasn't that when we first ran. And I think, when you make a pledge like that, and when you make that type of commitment, and you show true to the cause, and then people get the representation that they feel like that they are deserving of, and they are, then I think that builds a stronger grassroots organization and brings people out to know that, hey, at least somebody in their government still believes in representing people.
Yes. Yeah, and that's exactly why I asked that question. Why do you think that you have a high turnout? Because I believe just what you just said, that when people begin to have faith in their elected representatives, that they're actually honest and transparent and doing what is right, they're more eager to get out, number one, to support them, and number two, to let their voices be heard because they know they'll be listened to. And so they're eager to go meet you at the local GOP meeting to tell them what is concerning them because they know you're going to be there for one. And number two, you're going to listen to them. And then you're going to do what's right. It's interesting how this increases participation, like you said, and I believe will ultimately increase voter turnout if we had more transparency and honesty in the legislature.
I'd agree. I would agree with that, and I think that when you look at the top individuals on the People's Audit, I think those same situations exist in each one of those districts. In House District 3, where Rick
Right.
West, House District 34, I think, where Molly Jenkins, I think it's 34, and so they have a tremendous amount of credibility with their people.
I'm going to attempt here to share my screen and let me see if I can let people see a glimpse of this. Let's see. I don't want to wait. Here we go. Okay, let me do this here. All right. So the People's Audit, and I'll share this link too, especially for you guys listening on the podcast. I'll put this link to the People's Audit in the show notes. So go there to find that and go straight here. You can see you can download the PDF, and here we go. The People's Audit. It's lengthy. I think it's like, is it 64 pages or something? Yeah, 64.
It's
But
very extensive. I think he did 93 bills.
Yeah, I mean, great work here again from former Representative Jason Murphy. But I want to come here to the ranking so we can see that. Here we go. I think, yeah, here's the top of it. So we have here at the top Representative Gann, and has a grassroots score of 94.57. You can see right below him is Molly Jenkins, 92.4. Rick West, that you mentioned a minute ago, 86.9. Jim Shaw, 78. Woolley, 73. You know, all of these here in the top 10 are people we talked about a lot. We have Denise Crosswide Hayter, Hildebrandt, Olson, Humphrey, Maynard. And it's interesting, though, that once you get out of the top 10, it kind of takes a nosedive pretty quickly. And it goes all the way down here to the poorest ranking, the least conservative ranking. We have 3 at the bottom with a 0. How do you, as a Republican, score a 0 in a grassroots conservative ranking? Very interesting there. If I was in their district, I would be asking some questions. We have Stinson, Sterling, and Canaday at the bottom. And it's interesting that a few years ago, Mr. Canaday actually led an effort to oust those who kept on voting no, those pesky legislators who liked that red button. And, why do you insist that people toe the party line or just fall in line with what leadership says? I mean, very interesting dynamics, and why they would insist on that green button. We need everyone to just check their brains at the door and vote green. So I'm thankful that there's guys like you who refuse to do that.
We had about 17 people there that offered a real staunch stand on tax increases and things. And of course, the mechanism was, if it didn't pass the legislature by 51%, it should go to a vote of the people. Or if it did pass by 51%, it should go to a vote of the people. And then, of course, you had to have the supermajority numbers, 60 or 75% in the House and Senate for those tax increases. But during that time, we stood consistently and locked up many times with the Democrats to hold them at bay from doing that, because a lot of us ran on the platform to not raise your taxes. And this came, this was what caused the purge. We were considered the cancer of the caucus because we would stand on principle every time, and the principle doesn't change, and neither were we. And yet they became very, very frustrated that they didn't have the power just to simply do whatever they wanted to do. And there were many sides on that, both dark money sides, Republican sides, that wanted a legislature to perform to whatever a special interest group needed, and that's what happened. And we've started to claw back a little bit with some new entries into the House of Representatives here just recently, and people need to. We need some more down there to hold your government pay.
Absolutely. Well, I want to dig into some of the bills that you have put forth this year. We'll dig into those. First, I'm going to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Modus Health, Stevens Trucking, Michael Mcguire. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. Modus Health in Yukon, Oklahoma, here with Dr. Jeremy Moss. Dr. Moss, tell me what you guys do here at Modus Health.
So we are a full-service natural health care clinic, chiropractic, acupuncture, functional medicine, nutrition, massage, really anything from a natural, holistic, vitalistic perspective. That's what we do, and so we exist to serve for.
Yukon, Oklahoma, Dr. Jeremy Moss and his team, I know they can help you out. How do they get in touch with you?
Easiest way is just give us a call. So 405-494-0165. You'll call our front desk. We'll get you squared away as soon as we can. Typically, we can work patients in, sometimes even same day, but for sure within the same week, we'll get you in and get you feeling better soon.
Big shout out to Stevens Trucking, family owned since 1979, delivering top-notch freight solutions across Oklahoma and the lower 48 states. With over 350 trucks and 1,600 trailers, they offer reliable 24/7, 365 service, specializing in oil field and dry freight. They keep loads moving fast, backed by a fleet of flatbeds, dry vans, and more. Trust Stevens for on-time deliveries, cutting-edge equipment, and a team that treats you like family. Get a free quote today at stevenstrucking.com. Planning for a secure retirement? Then you need to meet my friend Michael Mcguire, CEO of Mcguire Capital Advisors. With over 30 years of experience helping Oklahomans protect and grow their wealth. From asset allocation and risk management, Michael delivers personalized solutions tailored to you. Get your complimentary consultation today. Visit McGuireCap.com or call Michael directly at 405-760-5863. That's 405-760-5863. Your confident financial future starts here. All right, well, welcome back. I'm here with Representative Tom Gann, and we're talking about his conservative stance in the legislature. He continues to do so as he is working on some conservative bills. Welcome back, sir.
Good to have me back. Thank you.
Well, let's talk about what you mentioned, NDAs, a couple of times, and I don't know if you have a bill addressing these, but I do want to touch on that before we dig too deep. Do you have any bills addressing NDAs? Because that's one thing I'm sick of, is our government kind of going around behind the curtain, doing these non-disclosure agreements with corporations. And, you know, talk to me about that. What have you seen in your tenure there, and why should we shut this down?
A couple of years ago, I introduced, soon after the Panasonic debacle over at Mid-American Industrial Park and Canoe and everything, I introduced two bills. One dealt with the tax incremental financing districts, but the other one dealt with non-disclosure agreements, which is the most offensive thing you can do as an elected official to your constituency, to secretly make deals with their tax dollars and with their lives and with where they live, all done in secrecy, with an outfit that they've never heard of and wouldn't hear of unless you disclosed it to them. And I ran a bill that would have outlawed non-disclosure agreements at every level of government. To me, it's just outrageous. It's the epitome of secret government, and I could not even get a second in committee to have it go forward. Well, here we are a couple of years later, and NDAs are so egregious out with solar panels, with windmills, with data centers. People are just absolutely distraught over their elected officials signing off like 2 years prior to an entity, you know, to bring in a solar panel factory or farm or windmills, and people are just astounded that their elected official would do that. And so this year there are several measures. I think Representative Shaw has one that deals with NDAs. I have one that's included in a package. And in the meantime, let me tell you this, Jake, this is amazing. In Title 74, Mike Osborne passed a bill here, I think is in 23, that requires your Senate member or your House member who are a part of the Commerce Committee making decisions on where their big corporate giveaways go, they're required to sign NDAs to be a part of that committee.
Wow.
I know.
Just to highlight the polarization, even within the House, you have individuals like you who are fighting to ban and outlaw them, then others that are creating bills to mandate them. Is that what I'm hearing? That there are NDAs that are mandated?
Yes, this Title 74, I can't remember the section number, but I can look it up for you and get it to you. It states clearly that in order to be a member of the Commerce Committee, you must sign an NDA. So what they're saying is that that they are compelling members to sign these NDAs so that they cannot tell the people that elected them, that put their most sacred thing to them, which is their vote, to go down and make decisions for them transparently and let them know what's going on with the tax dollars that they're compelled to pay. And it's just outrageous. I'm telling you, I couldn't believe it. I voted against it. And yet this issue is not going away. We see it every time in these local governments. If you watch what's going on, maybe here in Inola or over here in Oologah, or just you name the data center, wherever it is, some elected official has signed off on an NDA. And this is a nationwide phenomenon that's going on right now. And the only restraint that I've been able to come up with or find was in the state of Michigan, where Michigan passed a bill, and I'm not sure what the status is, but I think it cleared the House because I talked to the House member who knew some legislators down here, and that basically prevented the legislature from signing NDA. So that was the first bill that I know of that has gone the opposite direction and stood for transparency and freedom. But the bill that I filed this year that deals with it is House Bill 3842, and it's the Legislative Transparency, Accountability, and Opens Meeting Act of 2026. And basically, it's an open legislator initiative. We ought to be open with everything that we do, because I think oftentimes the way our attitudes towards our constituency that is influenced greatly by special interest groups from the money they take, the structural components of how we deal with bills down at the state capitol through the rules process, which we can maybe get into a little bit later. These really create a level of frustration out here with the populace, who wonder often, why don't we ever get anything done?
Yeah.
And oftentimes decisions are made behind closed doors already. You don't hear or see the discussion. You don't know who voted against it or who voted for it. It just comes up, and then it goes through this public deliberative type process that gives a semblance of open government, but is really far from it. And so this bill, I would hope, by placing the state legislature under the Open Meeting Act and all committees and everything that we do, would help facilitate and bring a credibility back to the way we do things in Oklahoma City, and help people understand that they can affect their government if they know what's going on. You know, you gotta know.
I wonder how many in Osborne's district knew that happened, that he was pushing for that. To shut them out, essentially. I wonder how many in his district actually knew that was happening.
Well, I'm not sure, and you know, it's just one of those things. It's not structurally here. It's did not really get the debate or the openness that it should have, because it was all kind of done hush hush and secretively. You ask a question on the floor, they don't even answer. They just know that they've got the votes and they're just waiting on you to do your thing and then sit down, and then the vote takes place. Because here again, the power is so consolidated into to a few people through the rules process that the actual deliberation that would vet this stuff out is just not occurring in the committees or on the House floor. And I mean, the most recent example is, look at the Legislative Compensation Board. Look at what was done in secret there. And you couldn't even go in. They all went behind an executive session, to give your legislature a raise, which is just outrageous. And it came far short of any open meeting requirements.
Yeah.
So,
and from what I was told, that they were handed a sheet saying, this is what we've already decided we want to raise it to, just check the box. And
yes.
So what's the point of a board if they're just checking boxes?
Well,
to run it through a formality.
Yeah, and it's all just to give them an out to say, well, the board decided, when really this is pushed within the legislature. Members are seeing that they, this is a full-time job, Jake, and people who have jobs or have businesses outside of this, they have to have help running their businesses, because this takes too much work, too much effort. If you're going to do it right and read all the bills, it just takes too much effort. And I think people see that if they're going to give up a certain part of their professional life, they need more money, but then, you're not always getting what you're paying for either. So,
yeah, for sure. Sure.
So, and then speaking of outside moneyed influence too, another part of this bill, 3842, requires that if a special interest group through a lobbying organization has a legislator bring forth a bill, then they have to file a lobbyist impact statement.
Okay, nice.
To attach that money to that legislative effort, so people can see that, okay, he or she accepted this contribution and carried that bill for them. And I think most of the special interest groups, if it's corporate or even if it's governmental, if it's a state agency that needs a law passed, that's never in favor of the taxpayer. It puts them behind the eight ball. And I think that's just something that is just common down there.
I love this. The lobbyist impact statement. Now, would this be filed by the legislator or the lobbyist?
Yes, he'd have to file the legislator would have to file the lobbyist impact statement. You remember it when you were in the legislature, we had a fiscal impact statement that went along with the bill. And so if he would have to be up front, he'd have to disclose that this is tied directly to a piece of legislation that's sponsored by somebody who has given them a contribution, so people can connect the dots and see that this is being influenced by a special interest group. So it's just secrecy erodes the trust. And oftentimes, I don't know if you got this in the Senate when you were in there, but we're often asked, is this a constituent request bill?
Right.
And most of the time, it's not. They avoid that question. And
that's important, because we need to know, is this coming from the people of your district, or is this coming from outside interest, lobbyist groups, special interest groups?
So they have to disclose if that influence is there. And then the other, so I kind of took another avenue instead of just trying to, I know other bills are out there that will outlaw NDAs, but I thought, well, if we can't get that, then at least we have to make them disclose that they signed an NDA. So immediately on signing an NDA, you have to report that as well, that you have signed an NDA. And I think in requiring that to happen, then puts people on notice that your legislator is operating in secret with another entity that he's not going to tell you about because he signed that, and that would make any kind of vote, I think, questionable if they were to vote on a issue that is tied to that entity that he signed an NDA with.
Yeah. The argument you hear from so many legislators, and even those in the campaign, those candidates who are running for office, is, hey, I might take their money, but I let them know that they're not buying me. Does that ever hold water?
I don't think so. I think that's just a statement to kind of a self. I haven't ever seen it. I haven't seen it. They're influenced one way or another. But regardless, say they're not. Just the appearance of evil is wrong there.
Right.
And so even if you didn't, even if you really voted honestly for a measure that somebody disagreed with, the fact that tie is there, they're going to think you're influenced. So
yeah, you have that seed of doubt that's planted. And
yes.
here's the thing: if that statement is true, they should have no problem voting for House Bill 3842.
Right. Yeah. I mean, really, we should be about open government, and the structure needs to facilitate that, and it doesn't. And when we operate in multiple levels, when we have multiple committees, and the decisions how they're made on what bills get heard, what bills don't get heard, and then also when you have procedural votes on the floor that aren't recorded and things aren't done properly, it's in the open. You don't get the scrutiny that government deserves to keep government for the people and by the people.
Yes, exactly. Now, has House Bill 3842 been assigned to a committee yet?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I haven't had any emails on that, but I have had an email on a bill that I have that's affecting the judiciary. I got a notice that I have that bill in that committee and that I have to provide some documentation with it.
Okay, which bill is that? Because I'm very interested in this, and this
is Oklahoma Government Transparency and Judicial Accountability Act. It expands oversight authority to individuals exercising judicial and quasi-judicial power and strengthens the referral and removal procedures to protect the integrity of justice. So what we've ran into when we challenged the OCC and the Oklahoma Corporation Commissioners on their role as quasi-judicial role in making their decisions, we kept getting passed along to the next entity, and we asked the Supreme Court to take jurisdiction because this entity, the judicial the judicial reform or
nominating commission or
no.
No.
It slips my mind right now.
Okay.
But the judge that oversees judges that determine whether or not they're there was a AG opinion that really left things open that said, well, these are elected officials. They do have a judicial quasi-judicial function, but yet they're not judges. And the Supreme, the Constitution just says and points out it's just for judges. However, what this bill does then allows those judges then to review the situation and make recommendation to another committee that might hold them accountable and things.
Okay.
So
is that the Council on Judicial Complaints?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. You bet.
Well,
yes, I know there's so many agencies, huh? So
yes,
it'd be nice to thin those out sometimes.
Yes, thank you for that. And so we said, okay, that cannot, because they are not quote unquote judges, they're elected officials, but yet they can still decide if there needs to be action taken. And that's what this bill does. It expands that entity's role in oversight.
Okay.
Is what.
Okay. I mean, and that's what we need. We need, talking about transparency, we need more transparency and oversight in our courts. One thing I've been talking about, this will be a good segue to another topic I want to bring up with you, is cameras in the courtrooms. Instead of cameras focusing on the people, why don't we turn those cameras and focus them on the government? And so you've been talking a lot about cameras with the ALPRs, the license plate readers. You have done tremendous amount of research. You're speaking about this all over the state. And I want to dig into that, the ALPRs, and then also cameras in the courtrooms. What do you feel about that?
I think that's great. I think we have cameras in the legislature and they record every
Right.
word. We need to expand that to take it on down to the committee meetings and provide notices when people can view that. But in these court proceedings, when they deal with your government, I have no problem with cameras being on there. I do have a problem though, a camera tracking you everywhere you go and creating a dossier of your life, and then through the use of AI, trying to create a level of suspicion due to maybe who you're driving down the turnpike with, or who you have to pass every day going to your work. I mean, those are some real serious issues that we have out here with automated license plate readers, is the tracking.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. And I think most people, I would say, most people have an issue with this. It seems that the ones who don't have an issue with this are law enforcement. I mean, and the argument is it's a tool. It's a tool we use to help catch bad guys. So what's the response to that?
Well, the response is they have to have a warrant, Jake. And the Oklahoma law is silent to that requirement under Title 47, Section 7-606.1F says that this data cannot be used, shall not be used for any other purpose other than the compulsory insurance law. So there is a prohibition in statute to prevent that data being used. And it's kind of ironic, though, if you're on the turnpike and you're law enforcement, if you're a customer with the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority and law enforcement comes and wants your turnpike data from the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, they have to have one of three things. They have to have a subpoena, a court order, or a warrant in order to obtain that data. Yet through this third-party vendor called Flock, and there may be others out there, but Flock seems to be the one that plagues Oklahoma the most because they're so cheap, and they have found their targeted marketing group has been small local governments and county governments. Through that, they've created this capture and this profile of everybody that drives by that triggers those cameras, and yet they do it without a warrant. And this has been, and so without a warrant, any type of data that they do take out of those cameras is jeopardized in the court of law. And so we found that to be the case, and the proof case was in McLean County, where a judge said that the statute is spot on. You can't use this data here on this drug case in court, and we have to throw that out because it says you cannot use this data for any other purpose. So they tried to use the data to convict a guy on a drug charge with it, and it doesn't work. So if if statute says you can't use the data, why collect it? Why?
Right,
What's
right.
the point? Well,
Yeah.
because they're doing other things with it, and as we're digging into it and as time goes on, we're seeing just how loose this data and the architecture is. I have a video that I'd like to maybe you can post someday, and it's about 11 minutes, but it talks this man who hacks into their system and looks at cameras in New York and Georgia, all across the United States, from one central point in Georgia where he's from. And he can go in and he can delete videos. He can download videos. He can see,
Man.
yeah, he can read it all, and then take facial recognition software and find out who the people are that he's just viewed. This is all open.
Yeah.
It's
That's my big questions is what exactly is being acquired? Is it just the license plate? I think that there's a lot of evidence that it's a lot more than just the license plate. Then go ahead.
Well, they have new cameras. Most of these cameras are stationary, and when your car goes by and triggers them, whether you're walking, riding a bike, or whatever, the camera is triggered and it just takes a snapshot. But it records the dents in your car, the bumper stickers on the back of your car. It records your color, your make, And then on top of that, it has your tag. But now they have the pan, tilt, zoom cameras where they can actually zoom in on your facial features. They can zoom in on what, maybe if you're looking at as in this video that I have, showing the man watching his phone, a video on his phone, and the AI camera actually zooms in on the phone to see what he's watching. And so the capability, this pan, tilt, zoom has changed the game in Oklahoma, where it was the placement of these cameras were not authorized on state right of way. Now they don't have to be. They have the pan, tilt, zoom cameras that they can set outside of state right of way, but still on the road and take pictures of what they what they need.
And this just highlights the nature of government to creep and grow. You
Yes.
give it an inch, it will take 20 miles. And you mentioned it a minute ago. This was instituted because of compulsory insurance laws. Now it has nothing to do with insurance. It's being used for far beyond that, and collecting data that has nothing to do with your insurance, at least has the capacity to collect that data. And then the additional questions of, can it be hacked? Can it be sold? Who actually owns this? Was it acquired with or without a warrant? But one of the things I like to point out in this is how this conversation has expanded. When it started out as an instrument to target compulsory insurance law violations, which I would love to dive into that conversation a lot more about compulsory insurance law in
Yes.
general, and whether or not that is something we should antiquate here in Oklahoma as well.
Well, you're right. That is a whole nother can of worms to open up. But yes, the compulsory insurance law, this request by the district attorney council when they came to the state legislature, was just like a Trojan horse to get in mass surveillance. Because if you go out and listen to the recordings that I play in my presentation, you can actually hear the reassurance by the DA council. This all we're going to use for is the compulsory insurance law. Yet what they admit in that committee is that this allows us not to just get a one-off, but it allows us to scan a whole bunch of people, just like they almost say mass surveillance, which that's exactly what it is. And so
they caught themselves, huh?
Yes, they did. It's kind of humorous, but the compulsory insurance law system is still out there, and it's different. And yet, and so because after my interim studies that I have had, I get a lot of interesting conversations of people's experiences. And I was just confronted with an individual the other day about his documentation showing his car and his tag, saying that his insurance, his liability insurance, had expired, and it hadn't. And he was very upset at this and showed that it was going to cost him $195 to get out of it. And then the other aspect of it, what we don't talk about or is not talked about, are the mistakes and the dangerous situations people have been put in due to mistakes made by these cameras. And so these are situational, these are potentially just devastating situational things that you get into when you're misidentified as somebody that you're not. And it's dangerous. And of course, I talk about the $2 million lawsuit that was won by a lady and her, she and her young daughter and another person, I think, were held at gunpoint, forced to lay down on hot pavement due to a misread on a tag. And soon after that interim study this fall, I received a phone call from a gentleman who had a similar experience here in Oklahoma, where he and his wife and his elderly mother were held at gunpoint and forced to walk backwards. And he was so concerned about his mother that she couldn't hear because of her age, and she was elderly and didn't understand. She was confused and scared. And, after that, he said, it's not, we got over that experience, but he said every time a law enforcement officer pulls up behind him, he says, I get really nervous.
I bet.
Are they going to see my tag again?
Yeah. And you just take this on to the extreme about, extrapolate this of where this could go. And it's endless about surveillance and monitoring. And, we do this on the right to the left, talking about the border. And we say, oh, you don't like borders? Oh, well, then let's invite them all into your house. We use hyperbole there and take it to the extreme to make a point. Of course you like boarders. You're not going to let them through your door. But to this point, are we going to have armed guards in our home? We would be safer. I mean, we can think of all the ways that we could be safer. If we had mandated sergeants that follow us around to make sure that we're safe. Well, we don't want that. And so we're going to say there's limits. We'd rather not compromise essential freedom for safety, like Benjamin Franklin said.
Yes.
We would rather enjoy freedom and have a little risk involved. Freedom is messy. Freedom has risk. And so let's prioritize freedom over safety. But if you push on this safety, then there's no limits to that. It's like, we're going to close you down, lock you down, 15-minute cities, and you can only stay here for your own good. It's all for your own good. And I think that the people are wising up to this, saying, you know what is for my good? Freedom is for my good.
I agree with that. In the tech titans, these guys that are promoting this, they believe that human behavior can be adjusted by a camera on a pole. But I would think that this whole effort is anti-police. I think it shows that people want to sit behind some computer and be able to watch stuff happen. When if you had a policeman, a live body on the street, walking a beat or in his patrol car, only they can help you if you get into a bad situation. And it's only their presence that really, I think, people think twice about committing a crime. And so even on some of Flock Camera's own literature says that one of the things that they won't use it for is immigration enforcement. And so it's amazing. They want to watch us citizens that pay for all of this through our tax dollars and local governments, but yet illegal immigrants get a buy. And of course, what we've seen the Trump administration prove is that a lot of these men are criminals that have illegally immigrated into the United States. Over 10,000 crimes, I think, have been prevented in the state of Minnesota. Whenever I was reading some statistic about that as well. Mm-hmm. So, and his answer to him, Trump's answer is not more cameras, is get people on the ground and start rooting these people out and go get the criminals. And I think that is a method that law enforcement needs to remember, and that's what most people would really advocate for. We want good-hearted policemen out there working hard and protecting society.
Amen. Yeah. Do you have a bill that addresses ALPRs this session?
No, I don't specifically. We have the best right now, where it says you cannot use the data for any other purpose other than the compulsory insurance law.
Right. It's already there. Let's enforce it.
That's right. So let's recognize that for what it is. It is the law. Let's ask law enforcement to secure their to enforce that law as well, or recognize that law while they try to enforce others. And then we need to allow city and local governments to realize that if that data is so open to others being able to access it and use it, then the liability that they are subjecting their small towns and counties to and their law enforcement agencies to is so tremendous that they just need to back out of their contracts, like we've seen happen in Bartlesville may do it, but Guthrie has done it here in Oklahoma. But there have been cities and towns all across the nation that have had it, but they backed out because of the liability. In the interim study that I had this fall, I had a defense attorney who testified, and she just said the lawsuits are coming. In the Flock contracts that she had reviewed, they're only on the hook for $100. And so when you look at Aurora, Colorado, where the lady sued and she got $2 million, that's on the taxpayers of the state of Colorado. That's right. Yeah. That's right. I just think it's untenable.
Do you think it is worth an effort to try to repeal this statute in Title 47 to remove the use of ALPRs for compulsory insurance purposes?
I think we need to talk about that, because if that whatever the law allows, it also encourages, and we see this as a textbook case to that. And we have to. But what was interesting is the law that was before it that actually reduced the uninsured motorist rate was where the sheriff, if they or the law enforcement pulled you over and you didn't have insurance, they could take your tag and you had to go to the courthouse and get it. That was repealed last year by Representative Bayshore. And I spoke to that on the House floor, and I voted against it because that was what really actually dropped it from the 25% rate that we had in the state down to 13.6 before they ever started talking about license plate readers. And after they implemented license plate readers, of course, COVID hit, and you had to spike up again back to that 25% mark, and then it slowly made its way back down again. But it's the manual taking of the tag really had an effect on there. And so I don't know legislatively right now, if your law enforcement's not going to acknowledge this law, what other law do you have to pass for them to not acknowledge? I mean, that's kind of where it is. So
Right.
we're going to have some sort of reckoning out here, and I don't know what that is or when it will be.
Okay. Representative Tom Gann, sir, so appreciate you. We'll be praying for you through this legislative session. I know that you're enjoying a few quiet days left before you come to Oklahoma City and dive into the chaos that is the legislative session. That starts next, when is it? February 2nd? Is that right?
February 2nd, that'll be on Monday. And
Okay.
we'll start out with some pomp and circumstance and everything, and then dive in.
All right. All right. Well, blessings to you and your family. Look forward to updates as we go along.
All right. Same here. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless. All right, Representative Tom Gann, and tell you what, good representative of the people there, right there. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this show, and I will see you next time.